Shri Guru Charana Padma Kevala Bhakati Sadma Shri Guru Charana Padma Kevala Bhakati Sadma Shri Guru Bando Mui Savadana Mate Bando Mui Savadana Mate Prasade Baye Baba Toriya Jaya Jahara Prasade Baye Baba Toriya Jaya Krishna prapti ho jaha hoite Krishna prapti ho jaha hoite Padmavakya chitete koriyakya Guru Mukha Padmavakya chitete koriyakya Guru Mukha Arna kori ho mane asha Arna kori ho mane asha Shri Guru Charane Rati Aise Utama Gati Shri Guru Charane Shri Guru Charane Rati Aise Utama Gati Guru Jai Prasade Pure Sarva Asha Jai Prasade Pure Sarva Asha चकु दान दिलो जे जन्मे जन्मे प्रभु से चकु दान दिलो जे जन्मे जन्मे प्रभु से दिव्य ज्ञान हृदय प्रकाशित दिव्य ज्ञान हृदय प्रकाशित प्रेम भक्ति यहाँ होते अविद्या विनाश जाते प्रेम भक्ति जहाँ होते अविद्या विनाश जाते वेदे गाया हर चरितो वेदे गाया हर चरितो श्री गुरु करुणा सिंधु आदम जनारा बंधु श्री गुरु करुणा सिंधु आदम जनारा बंधु लोकनाथ लोकेरा जीवना लोकनाथ लोकेरा जीवना हा प्रभु करो दया देह मोरे पदचया हा प्रभु करो दया देह मोरे पदचया एबे जास्तु सुत्रिभुवना एबे जास्त गुसुत्रिभुवना श्री गुरु करुणा सिंधु आदम जनारा बंधु श्री गुरु करुणा सिंधु आदम जनारा बंधु लोकनाथ लोकेर जीवना लोकनाथ लोकेर जीवना प्रभु करो दया देह मोरे पादचाया हा प्रभु करो दया देह मोरे पादचाया Eveya sutribhuvana Eveya sutribhuvana Sila Prabhupada Patita Pavana Sila Prabhupada Patita Pavana Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Srila Prabhupada. Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Srila Prabhupada. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada. Oh Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada. Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamin Iti Namine Namah. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Namaste Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Shri Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Shri Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Shri Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna. Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Ram, Ram Ram. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Hare Hare. Nitai Gauranga, Nitai Gaurango, Nitai Gaurango. Nitai Gaurango, Gaura Hari. Nitai Gaurango, Gaura Hari. Gaura Hari, Jaya Gaura Hari. Gaura Hari, Jaya Gaura Hari. Nitai Gaurango, Gaura Hari. Nitai Gaurango, Gaura Hari. Oh, Nityananda Ram, Jaya Nityananda Ram. Oh, Nityananda Ram, Jaya Nityananda Ram. Nitai Gaurango, Nitai Gaurango. Nitai Gaurango, Nitai Gaurango. Oh, Nitai Gaurango, Gaura Hari. Nitai Gaurango, Gaura Hari. Nitai Gaura Hari Bo, Hari Bo, Hari Bo, Hari Bo. Nitai Gaura Hari Bo, Hari Bo, Hari Bo, Gaura Hari Bo. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Jaya Radhe Shyam, Radhe Shyam, Radhe Shyam, Jaya Radhe Shyam. Jaya Radhe Shyam, Radhe Shyam, Radhe Shyam, Jaya Radhe Shyam. Jaya Radha Shyama Sundar Radhe Radhe, Radha Shyama Sundar Radhe. Jaya Radha Shyama Sundar Radhe Radhe, Radha. Jaya Krishna Balaram, Jaya Krishna Balaram, Krishna Balaram. Jaya Krishna Balaram, Jaya Krishna Balaram. Jaya Gauranitai, Jaya Gauranitai, Gauranitai. Jaya Gauranitai, Jaya Gauranitai. Jaya Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada. Jaya Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada. Jaya Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada. Jaya Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada. Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Srila Prabhupada. Nitai Gaura Hari Bo, Hari Bo, Hari Bo, Gaura Hari Bo. Nitai Gaura Hari Bo, Hari Bo. Prabhupada ki jai. Jai Om Vishnupada Paramahansa Parivraj Gacharya Stotra Satashi Shrimad Svangre Sesi Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki jai. ISKCON Bhagavati Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Jai Om Vishnupada Paramahansa Parivraj Gacharya Stotra Satashi Shrimad Svangre Srila Bhaktivedanta Saraswati Thakur Maharaj Prabhupada ki jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki jai. Himsakho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Dvaita Radha Shivasari Gaur Bhakti Vrinda ki jai. Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shyamagunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhana ki jai. Shri Vrindavan Dham ki jai. Shri Mayapur Dham ki jai. Shri Nuraman Reti Dham ki jai. Shrimati Gangamai Yamunamai Devi ki jai. Shrimati Tulsi Devi Bhakti Devi ki jai. Samavet Bhakti Vrinda ki jai. Shri Hare Krishna Mahamantra ki jai. Yoga Dharma Harinam Sankirtan Yagya ki jai. Dai Guru Premanande Hari Hari Bol. All glories to the Son of devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the Son of devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the Son of devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to Shri Guru Shri Gauranga.
Hare Krishna. Oh. Hare Krishna. Susan? Okay. This is from Prabhupada Nectar book, and this is something that Sadarupa Devi Dasi wrote. My first personal encounter with Srila Prabhupada was in Switzerland. Prabhupada was meeting a very famous person, and he was in his room along with Guru Gauranga and Bhagavan and Yogeshwar. I was cooking for Prabhupada, so when he came out, we rushed to the door to see him. As Srila Prabhupada and the others went by, they were almost facing the kitchen door. When they saw us there, Yogeshwar stopped the party and said, Srila Prabhupada, this is a very famous, world-famous fashion model, blah, blah, blah. As he went on talking, it was so embarrassing for me to have to listen. I wanted to tell Srila Prabhupada, it's not true, I'm a devotee now, don't listen to him. I was looking at Prabhupada like I was saying, help. Prabhupada looked at me straight in the eyes, and then Yogeshwar stopped. Then Yogeshwar rephrased the whole thing again. I felt like I was sinking into the ground. I had the feeling that I had disappeared from the surface of the globe, and when I came back to my consciousness, Prabhupada was still there looking at me. Yogeshwar was finishing off his little speech. Prabhupada then gave me a beautiful smile, like a little 5-year-old, a mischievous, brilliant smile. It was just unbelievable, like the whole sun is in your room. I loved that analogy. I had to read you this because of that. It was just like the whole sun is in your room. He looked at me with a glint in his eyes and he said, chant Hare Krishna. I said, yes, Prabhupada, and I fell flat on the ground. Prabhupada continued walking. When he told me to chant Hare Krishna then, I felt that this was the instruction I had been waiting for all my life. I was very satisfied, and I knew for sure that Krishna consciousness was for me. He confirmed the importance of chanting Hare Krishna, but it was also for me specifically. I became convinced that this was my way to please Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Okay, let's see. Okay, I want to welcome Madhavi and her family back. She's in the kitchen putting away some flowers, but Haribo, she's been in India. That's a devotee who goes to Vrindavan in the middle of the summer. There she is, Haribo. Welcome back. And reminding you that the book marathon is going on from now until Srila Prabhupada's Vyas Puja Day. Wednesday, the book room is open. Yesterday, Sri Vrindavan sold a set of Chaitanya Charitamrita. So for us, that is a big Haribo. And please continue to support that. Also, I want to mention, I think this is the week that some of our families are leaving for Mayapur, where they're moving to have their children go to the school there. Karuna Prabhu and her family are leaving this week, and Rohini Kumar and Vaishnavi also, I think, are leaving this week. So I just can't really be that happy about it, tell you the truth. I'm very sad to lose them both. They're both very dynamic members of this community who contribute a lot. So what can you say? I mean, I hope it's great for them in Mayapur and that you don't get absorbed into the masses and throngs of devotees, whereas here you really can stand out. But I'm just saying, I hope you have a great time there. Okay, so anyway, please wish them bon voyage, good travels, and safe time. Hare Krishna. Jai. So these are the devotees who assisted their spiritual master in dressing the deities today. Shishi Radha Sham Sundar Guru Prasad Prabhu, Chota Radha Shamsundar, Kaveri Prabhu, Shri Shri Krishna Balaram, Nanda Prabhu, Chota Krishna Balaram, Sachi Sundari Prabhu, Shri Shri Gornitai, Manjari Sundari Prabhu, Chota Gornitai, Gandharvika Prabhu, Gurus and Lord Nishingadev, Ram Narayan Prabhu. And Nagaraj Prabhu is giving the class today.
Kunja Bihari Jayo Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari Jaya Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Brajajana Randana Yashodanandana Brajajana Randana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari Jaya Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Brajajana Randana Yashodanandana Brajajana Randana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jayam Vishnupad Paramahansa Parivraj Kacharya Vishtotarshta Shishya Maresi Bhakti Vedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai Nitai Gaura Premanande Hari Hari Bol Namaveta Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Sri Guru Gauranga. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 10, Chapter 46, Uddhava visits Vrindavan. Text number 44 through 49 is the end of the chapter. We'll chant responsively text 44. Evam, in this way, Nisha, the night, Sa, that, Bruvatoho, as they were both speaking, Vyatita was finished. Nandasya, Nanda Maharaj, Krishna Anucharasya, and the servant of Krishna, Uddhava, Rajan, O King, Parikshit, Gopya, the cowherd women, Samuttaya, rising from sleep, Nirupya, lighting, Deepan, lamps, Vastun, the domestic deities, Samabhyarcha, worshipping, Dadhini, curds, Amantan, churned. Evam nishasa bruvator vyatita. Nandasya Krishna Anucharasya Rajan. Gopya Samutaya Nirupya Deepam. Vastun Samabhyarcha Dadhinyamantan. Evam nishasa bruvator vyatita. Nandasya Krishna Anucharasya Rajan. Gopya Samutaya Nirupya Deepan. Vastun Samabhyarcha Dadhinyamantan. Evam Sanisha Evam Nishasa Bruvator Vyatita. Nandasya Krishna Anucharasya Rajan. Gopya Samuttaya Nirupya Deepan. Vastun Samabhyarcha Dadhinyamantan. Evam nishasa bhuvator vihita. Nandasya Krishna Anucharasya Rajan. Gopya Samutaya Nirupya Deepan. Vastun Samabhyarcha Dadhinyamantan. Evam nishasa bruvator vyatita. evam nishasa bhuvato rupita. Nandasya Krishnanucharasya Rajan Gopya Samutaya Nirupya Deepam Evam Nishasa Bhuvato Rupita. I can't, does it say amantun or ton? That's, in here it says ton. It's also in the Devanagari it says ton. Amantan, churning. Yeah, it's ton. Ladies? Yeah. Okay, translation. While Krishna's messenger continued speaking with Nanda, the night ended, O king. The women of the cowherd village rose from bed and, lighting lamps, worshipped their household deities. Then they began churning the yogurt into butter. So we can chant all together. Tadipta dipta manibhi vireju rajur vikarshad bhuja kankana soja chalanitamba stanakhara kundala tvishat kapola aruna kunkumanana. As they pulled on the churning ropes with their bangled arms, the women of Braja shone with the splendor of their jewels, which reflected the lamp's light. Their hips, breasts, and necklaces moved about, and their faces, anointed with reddish kumkum, glowed radiantly with the luster of their earrings reflecting from their cheeks. Udgatayitinam aravindalochanam vajangananam divam asprishadvani Badnascha nimantana shabdamishrito nirasyate yena dishama mangalam. As the ladies of Braja loudly sang the glories of lotus-eyed Krishna, their songs blended with the sound of their churning, ascended to the sky, and dissipated all inauspiciousness in every direction. Purport. The gopis were absorbed in thought of Krishna and were thus feeling his presence. Therefore they could joyfully sing. Bhagavat yudite surye nandadvari vrajaukasaha trishvaratam satat kumham kasyayam iti chabruvan. When the godly sun had risen, the people of Braja noticed the golden chariot in front of Nanda Maharaj's doorway. Who does this belong to? They asked. Akrura agata kimba yakamsasyarta sadaka yena nito madhupurim Krishna kamalalochana. Perhaps Akrura has returned, he who fulfilled Krishna's desire by taking lotus-eyed Krishna to Mathura. Purport. The gopis angrily spoke this statement. King sadayishyatya asmabhir bhartuhu prita nishkritim tataha strinam padantinam uddhavo gatritanika. Is he going to use our flesh to offer funeral obeisons for his master, who is so satisfied with his service? As the women were speaking in this way, Uddhava appeared, having finished his early morning duties. Purport. This verse reveals the bitter disappointment the gopis felt when Akrura took Krishna away. However, they will be pleasantly surprised to see that the unexpected guest is Uddhava. Thus end the purports of the humble servants of His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, to the 10th canto, 46th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled Uddhava Visits Vrindavan. Om Jnana Timirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshuran Militamena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. First thing we can note here is that Uddhava and Nanda Maharaj have been talking all night long. Now it's morning, and Uddhava is going to do his morning duties, then come out. So it doesn't seem like he's getting any sleep. They were so absorbed in talking of Krishna, they just stayed up all night long. So here we are in the 10th canto, hearing so much about the spiritual world. I remember some months ago, here we're hearing about the gopis here. So they're getting up, worshiping the household deities, and then they're churning yogurt to make butter. So I remember some months ago, one of the young lady devotees asked, apparently maybe someone had brought this up, some friend of hers, the idea that she didn't like the idea of spending eternity milking cows. Some of you may have been here. So of course, we present Krishna consciousness and Krishna as being all attractive. So people have their different ideas about what is attractive. Prabhupada makes a nice, I've always liked this sentence in the Bhagavad Gita. In the 15th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says in verse number 5, how to attain the spiritual kingdom, how to go back to the eternal kingdom, back to Godhead. Then in text 6 he says, Na tadvasayate suryo na shashanko na pavaka yagadva na nivartante tadhama paramam mama. That supreme abode of mind is not illuminated by the sun or moon, nor by fire or electricity. Those who reach it will never return to this material world. So the first chapter, the purport, Prabhupada talks about how the spiritual world is self-luminous. There's no need of sunlight or moonlight or electricity. And he talks about how that's where we belong, not in this dark material world. And we can actually go there. In his conditional life, the living entity considers himself to be the Lord of this material world. But in his liberated state, he enters into the spiritual kingdom and becomes an associate of the Supreme Lord. There he enjoys eternal bliss, eternal life, and full knowledge. Then Prabhupada says, one should be captivated by this information. I've always liked that sentence. So we should be captivated by this information. We can actually go to God. We can be with God. Today it's sort of like a joke, right? Anything having to do with God, people don't take it seriously. The afterlife, there's so many, it's like several books that have collections of quotations by different people. So there's one by, I think it's Woody Allen maybe. You can imagine what this, the seriousness of quotation. He said, I don't know if there's life after death, but I'm bringing a change of underwear just in case. So people, they joke about such things, and you'll see maybe bumper stickers, I'd rather go to hell than heaven because all my friends will be there. So it's just not something that's taken seriously. But Prabhupada says we should be captivated by this information. It is actually possible to see God. You can actually go, there is a place where God exists, and you can go there and be with Him. So when you hear this, you should be captivated by it. Of course, we become so jaded and cynical We've heard so many things, been there, done that, whatever. That's our feeling today. Nothing excites us except maybe the latest video game or something, some technological gadgetry. But the important things of life, we're not really interested. In another verse I like, this is by Lord Brahma. This is in the context of the fall of Jaya and Vijay and this whole, it takes so long for this pastime to unfold of Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakashipu, and you get the background, the pregnancy of Diti and so on. It starts with the Lord Varaha's appearance. Because what happened actually was that Lord Brahma created created Swayambhuva and Manu and his wife, and they asked, "What do you want us to do?" And he said, "Create progeny." And they said, "Well, we can't because the earth is submerged at the bottom of the ocean. So where are we going to put them?" So then we start hear the pastime of Lord Varaha, and then I forget the whole context, but at some point we get to how Jaya and Vijay went to Vaikuntha, so that we get this chapter, the description of the kingdom of God. So Lord Brahma is explaining to the demigods why there's so much inauspiciousness appearing, how the world is all dark, because Jaya and Vijay have made their appearance in this world as two great demons. So he's giving the background of the story, and he's describing how Jaya and Vijay, the four Kumaras are entering into Vaikuntha and what they're seeing there. So of course it's a beautiful description of the Vaikuntha planets. So Lord Brahma says, "It is very much regrettable that unfortunate people do not discuss the description of the Vaikuntha planets, but engage in topics which are unworthy to hear and which bewilder one's intelligence. Those who give up the topics of Vaikuntha and take to talk of the material world are thrown to the darkest region of ignorance." A nice verse to encourage us in what we hear. We're hearing this pastime now, the gopis. So beautiful, this village life. They're getting up in the morning, worshiping their deities. And of course, it's a very beautiful scene. We have so many writings in the Bhagavatam and also by other charyas glorifying Vrindavan Dham. Or in the Bhagavatam also glorifying or seeing the beauty of the kingdom of God in any part of Vaikuntha. We talk about Vaikuntha, we also mean Goloka Vrindavan. There are places Prabhupada says that at the highest planet in Vaikuntha is Goloka Vrindavan. So Vaikuntha is sort of a general way we can talk about the spiritual world. We tend to think of it as the abode of Lord Vishnu. But Goloka Vrindavan is also included in Vaikuntha. So whether it's Vaikuntha, the Aishwarya Vaikuntha of Lord Vishnu, or Goloka Vrindavan, it's so beautiful. So the most beautiful part, of course, is Goloka Vrindavan, the abode of Krishna. So we hear the gopis are getting up, worshipping their deities, and churning their milk, the buttermilk, or the yogurt to make butter, and buttermilk, chach, and that's what it's called, chach in Hindi. We hear about the Goswamis, how they would take a little milk every day, or a little butter, so that's what they were taking, what's left over. When you churn the butter, you churn yogurt. First you make yogurt, that's how you actually make butter, real butter. You make yogurt first, and then the yogurt is churned. And then you have leftover buttermilk. So that buttermilk, when one performs madhukari, even some ISKCON devotees, they would do this sometimes. They would go to Vrindavan, Braja, they would go around and do madhukari, sort of half seriously, I guess. Our ISKCON Babaji mendicants. So you can imagine the Brijbasis, some Western big 6-foot European knocking at their door, asking for some prasad, So often the Brijbasis will give some of this chach, just a little bit, or maybe a little roti with it, a little roti and chach, chapati and a little buttermilk. So this is what he goes, like Raghunath Das Goswami, every couple of days he would have like maybe a handful, this chach. So the gopis are churning this. So this is how, it's a beautiful scene. And so simple. Now what happens, people wake up and maybe they'll, what do they have? They have to have their coffee. They even joke about it. I think it's not really funny, but they joke about it. I can't start without my coffee. It's like the mantra that people chant when they wake up in the morning. Where's my coffee? Their eye opener. It's like, it's not actually, it's quite sad actually. To them it's funny. Oh, I'm addicted to my coffee. It's funny how this word addiction has become so common. I think about this sometime. When I first became a devotee, devotees were talking about people being addicted to smoking. And at that time, nobody was talking about smoking as an addiction. I thought, well, these people, they're a little fanatical, the way they talk about the non-devotees. So they're talking about addiction to smoking. But it was just a bad habit back then. It was considered to be a bad habit, something that wasn't good for you, but not an addiction. But now it is considered, it is an addiction. Of course, it is an addiction. Physically, it is an addiction. Your body needs that after a while. So the same thing with the caffeine, it's a drug. You're taking this drug every morning, and you can't do anything. You can't, activate your machine unless you pour some of this toxin into it. Intoxication. It's a toxin. Caffeine. In fact, you can die from it, just like nicotine. You can die from it too. It's a poison. So they joke, oh, I have to get my caffeine, I can't get going, get my fix. So it's actually quite sad. That's the way you have to start your day. And then what do they do also? Then they have to either flip on the television or newspaper. I don't know if people even read newspapers. I suppose they're still being printed. Some people still have their cup of coffee and their newspaper every morning. What's going on in the world? Probably would say, we have no interest in these newspapers. Why? They just, one day they're here, then you just throw it in the garbage. You read a few things, and pages and pages and pages. Papa was always amazed by how many pages they would come out with. So much nonsense. Huh? Thousands and millions of things to talk about instead of Krishna. So Lord Brahma, he says, it is very much regrettable that unfortunate people do not discuss the description of the Vaikuntha planets, but engage in topics which are unworthy to hear. They're unworthy to hear, and which bewilder one's intelligence. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he published the newspaper, Nadia Prakash, a daily newspaper. So instead of taking your coffee and reading the Times, you get your whatever, lassi, and read Nadia Prakash. Hear what's Krishna doing today. I'm always reading several books at the same time. So what's the news today? Oh, Raghunath Das Goswami just finally escaped home. And he got the mercy of Lord Chaitanya. And he traveled for days on the back through the country so he wouldn't get caught. And the whole time he barely ate. And he arrived and he got the mercy of Lord Chaitanya. Swarup Damodar, Lord Chaitanya placed him under the protection of Swarup Damodar. And Lord Chaitanya told him that his father and uncle, they're just like worms in stool, basically, he told him. Lord Chaitanya said, I can joke like this because they're like family relatives. So that's one thing that happened recently. And in Vrindavan, so many things are happening. In the Krishna book, Nriga was in the well. I just read about him. Poor guy. Didn't seem like he even did anything wrong, but he ended up a lizard in a well. And so on, so many things. Lately I've also been reading I just discovered, I don't know why I never read this book before, Suhotra Swami's Substance and Shadow. So if you want to read some philosophy, get your mind going, really, it's amazing actually. He's quite a brilliant person. He passed away a few years ago. Quite brilliant the way he's presented, especially attacking Pratyaksha Anuman and establishing the authority of Vedic Shabda. It's really, really nice. So this is the news. This is what's happening, actually. This is really what's happening. People say, what's happening? This is what's happening. what's going on in Chaitanya Charitamrita, Krishna book, Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, which is ever fresh. Bhagavad Gita is actually it's an amazing book because you can read it over and over again, and it's actually an intellectual treatise. It's not easy reading. You have to apply your mind to try to understand it. So this is what we want to read. And of course we want to read about Krishna's Leela also, which, recently, because we're in the 10th canto, we're learning more and more about what's going on in Krishna's world. So it should be interesting. And the fact that we're not attracted means that we're diseased, actually. And we're so conditioned, this word, conditioned souls. You're conditioned like Pavlov's dog to respond to certain stimuli. So we're conditioned to respond to certain things, just like people they have no interest in. Like the simple life has no appeal to people, generally, today. For many people, we become so absorbed in our technological world, in our virtual reality. It's actually quite scary. It's becoming how it becomes more and more, how machines are taking over. Of course, there are people who write science fiction that take advantage of these kinds of things, these themes. But actually, people have been talking about this for some time, how there may come a day when computers become more powerful than us. Already, computers are behind everything, so if something goes wrong, just like when there's a power blackout in New York City goes black. What's that about? Some computer glitch, generally, because the computers have to make everything work exactly right. It's such a sensitive network. So if some glitch goes on in the computer, then we're so dependent on it, our world, it goes dark. We're already living in a dark world, and then it literally becomes dark because of some technological problem. But we're so absorbed in it and controlled by it. And we see how children, of course this has always been because we've had television so long, we enter into that virtual reality. Or even books, they've been around even longer. You enter into a fictional world through books, however you do it. What are you doing? You're turning your back to Krishna. You want to enter into some fantasy. This world itself is a dream, so within the dream we go off into another dreamland. The scary thing about it today is it's going to become more and more real. The virtual world, as the technology advances, you put on your goggles and your headset and you actually think you're in that world. It will become where it's very, very real. Already, of course, people lose themselves online. It happens very early, actually. My 5-year-old granddaughter already, she's playing games on the cell phones and on the videos and completely absorbed in it. I like to take her to the ocean where she experiences nature. I always think of this, just like we're seeing this natural life. People forget that natural life is good for us, good for our psychology, to be in touch with the basic elements. One thing I noticed going to the ocean, it's very elemental. What do you have there? Earth, water, air, fire, sky. That's it. You have sand, you have water, you have fire, you have air, you have space. And you're in touch with it. So it's actually like cleansing, actually, to the consciousness, not to be plugged into electronics, to get away from electronics a little bit, and get to the earth. People have long known that, for example, like gardening, it's very good. It's good for the health and good for the psychology also. Be in touch with the elements. In one sense, you're closer to Krishna, because these things are Krishna's material energy. So, natural life, we see with Vrindavan, one attractive feature of Vrindavan, people, they tend not to be attracted today. Because they're, just like I remember Balabhadra Prabhu, who does that, his scalp, take his cows around to different festivals, and people had never seen a cow before. They didn't know what's that, they would say. I never saw one of those in the zoo. They know what a tiger is and whatever, all strange species of fish and octopi and whatever, These they've all seen, but they've never seen a cow. They live in the city. So they're so separated from the natural life. So Vrindavan, of course, is the natural life, and the beauty of it, and the opulence of it. We hear about and of course, ultimately, the opulence of Vaikuntha. What really makes it attractive? Vrindavan itself is so attractive because, well, Vrindavan Dham is Krishna's abode, so it's identical to Krishna. But because of the devotion, that's really the attractive feature. The gopis here, we had this one line purport, as the gopis are happy because they're remembering Krishna, so they're feeling the presence of Krishna, because we know the gopis are always crying in separation from Krishna. But now they're churning and they're chanting Krishna's pastimes. We know they would put Krishna's Leela in the form of songs, and they would sing those songs all day. So they experience Krishna's presence through chanting the glories of Krishna. So that's really the beauty of Vrindavan, is the love of the Brijbasis, or the fact that Krishna is there. That's what makes it beautiful. That's really why it's nice. So going back to Krishna, milking cows all day long, that's glorious and wonderful and ecstatic because it's about Krishna, the person you love. Sometimes in romantic fiction or fantasy in people's lives, sometimes the idea comes up, well, they're in love with each other. Oh, I love you so much, and I love you so much. Of course, Prabhupada said they say this to each other. There's one lecture, he says, oh, I love you, you're my everything. And she says, oh, I love you, you are my everything. And 6 months later, divorce. Prabhupada said. So, but the idea is there, sometimes in the beginning, romantic love. So even though sometimes people, they're very poor and they don't know what's going to happen to them, but they're in love, so they say, whatever happens, it doesn't matter as long as we're together. As long as we're together, it will be all right. So you can say this is a perverted reflection of wherever the devotee is with Krishna, then it really is all right. Heaven or hell, it doesn't matter. So Vrindavan, because it's full of Krishna, either directly Krishna or the thought of Krishna, it's all saturated with Krishna, Krishna consciousness, then it's ecstatic, then it's wonderful. The devotees, sometimes we say the devotees, they're not interested in liberation. We hear their statements like this. Even if it's offered by Krishna, the devotees won't accept it. That kind of I don't really understand what that means exactly. Prabhupada says that. So, but of course, we do accept liberation. We do go back to Godhead. Because there's that natural pull toward Krishna. The natural yearning of the soul is to be with Krishna. And that's especially the place where it's all Krishna all the time. So in one sense, we can't resist the lure. The pure devotee, the soul, of course, is hankering for that. Everything that's pulling us here is just the allure of Krishna. I think there's a magazine called Allure. It's all about the body. Always has some beautiful model on the cover. So that's the allure most people have to especially feminine beauty. But that's just a dim reflection, many millions of times removed from the real allure, the beauty of Krishna. So our hearts are hankering for that. But because we want to hear other things, we don't even realize it. But if we hear, the more we hear, the more the coverings will be removed. And then we'll see, oh, this is actually good. Just like children. Sometimes they resist. Oh, I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it. Then you get them to do something they've never done before. They say, oh, that was fun. Let's do that again next week. Huh? So people say, no, I have no attraction for that. I'm more into if there's no computers in Vrindavan, I don't want to go there. What am I going to do without my computer or my smartphone? How can I exist without my cell phone? It's almost like, now electric cars, you're going to have to plug them in to make sure you get somewhere. So unless you're plugged in, you can't survive. Probably like robots. We have to be plugged in to something. And we won't be able to live. But so they think, no, I couldn't be happy in that atmosphere. But no, it's not about the thing that you're in or things that you have that you're attached to now. It's not those things. In fact, they're not making you happy anyway. That's an illusion, of course. You always have to get the new thing. something else comes along. You have to have that. People are constantly upgrading, updating. You have to have the latest, the latest. Oh, that's so much last week. We used to say last year, now it's so much last week. Things change so quickly. Actually, it's an interesting way to look at things, isn't it? Because things change so quickly now compared to how slowly change occurred in the past. It's always speeding up more and more and more. And because people are so much in the mode of passion, they always have to have the next thing, the next thing, the next thing. So always agitated, so agitated. No peace. Actually, I was reading some email that just came to me, and it was talked about a psychological experiment. They put people in a room and say, just sit here for 15 minutes. So just sit here, don't do anything for 15 minutes. But if you want to do something, if you push this button, you'll get an electric shock. So people, they couldn't sit. A lot of them, rather than sit for 15 minutes and do something, they shocked themselves. Oh, it was first like, ow! Then, well, a couple of minutes later, geez, I'm bored. Ah! They do it again. One guy did it like 190 times in 15 minutes. They can't sit, But of course, the internet is causing that too. People can't sit and read anymore. They have to jump, hyperlinks, We're hyperactive because of hyperlinks. So we see what we have going against us in preaching Krishna consciousness. Try to get people's attention. You have to shake them and get their attention somehow. So, but they're so agitated. So we're also, of course, we're in that atmosphere. We don't know, just like now, so many waves are coming through here, microwaves or radio signals. They're all here in the ether. So we're also susceptible to it. So that's why, of course, it's hard for us also to concentrate. I'm always trying to pay attention. Even we have the translations to the prayers, and we say them, and we get to the end, and I say, I was completely thinking of something different the whole time when I chanted Lotus Feet of the Spiritual Masters, and then, I was spacing out. Well, let me try to pay attention now. I kind of know what the Bengali means. Then I'm at the end of the song again. Spaced out again. So around the same way. All right, now I'm going to listen. And then, what happened? Mind went away again. So hard, even when you're trying. But what do? We have to keep trying, keep bringing the mind back. And we had to try to put ourselves in a situation, routine, over and over again. Do it as much as possible. And try not to be distracted. This verse, I just always like this. Instead of engaging our mind in topics which are unworthy to hear, which bewilder one's intelligence, we should hear about Krishna. That's the antidote to all this pollution. It's so much pollution. It's not just water and air. It's the whole ethers. All the elements are polluted in Kali Yuga. The ether is polluted with vibrations. So the only way is to connect to the spiritual world, Turiya, the fourth dimension. Connect with Krishna, connect with Vaikuntha, Golokera Premadhan, Harinam Sankirtan. Then eventually, maybe we can calm down a little bit. Think of Krishna, calm down, accepting Kirtan, then we can get ecstatic. Anyway, that's we can let it all. That also burns off all the nervous energy that we accumulate. We're always bringing it in. We can burn it out, burn it off. Kirtan, chanting Hare Krishna. Okay, so let me just read this first verse here, which is very nice. Text 44. While Krishna's messenger continued speaking with Nanda, the night ended, O king. The women of the cowherd village rose from bed and, lighting lamps, worshipped their household deities. Then they began churning the yogurt into butter. So, any questions? Comments? Anybody want to defend technology? Yamashmi Prabhu?
Yes. This point about
Mm-hmm.
So you
Yeah, yeah.
Suyuja, that one's obvious. But isn't it kind of in the context of the mentality of someone practicing Uttama Bhakti, that is only interested in pleasing Krishna, and Krishna wants them to be liberated in some way, and do it, but it doesn't go for it on his own. If it's offered to him, wants to make sure that's in line with his service.
Yeah, that's the mood of the devotee ultimately. He does whatever happens. In fact, the devotee's not even interested in leaving the material world. In fact, what the devotee thinks is, well, I'm already in Vaikuntha, right? I mean, my service to Krishna is my connection with Krishna, so I already have Krishna's association, so I'm happy anywhere. It's almost like the thought doesn't occur. Now, in the beginning, of course, in Prabhupada's books, he's encouraging us to go back home, back to Godhead, over and over, and thousands of times, telling us we should go back home, back to Godhead. So, but still, there's a state of consciousness where the devotee, it's sort of like irrelevant where the devotee is, because he's already connected with Krishna. Yeah. But Prabhupada does state it that way. Even Krishna offers it, he won't accept it. That just Prabhupada's expressing the devotee's mood more than I think. It's not because he's going to say, Krishna's going to say, come back with me, and the devotee's going to say, no, I don't want to go. It's not exactly the point the Prabhupada's making, I don't think. He's not going to refuse Krishna. He's sold out to Krishna. Somebody else? Adi Dev Guru?
You kind of see that in the
Yeah, it's on. It's just not very
the
loud.
life of Raghunath Swami. That here's a personality who's in such a deep state of meditation. Then he comes out every once in a while and goes about his day.
Yeah,
And he just goes back into his meditation.
right.
It's amazing when you read the lives of some of these same persons. Their meditation is so deep that they're just kind of barely holding on, just kind of keeping the body kind of going,
Many of Lord Chaitanya's associates, they were sort of like not really quite in this world, or at least a lot of times. Something I just came across which was interesting to me, because we think about the yogis meditating. And a lot of times I have this picture where the yogi sits down and just meditates for thousands and thousands of years. But also there are yogi in former ages that was their sadhana, just like we have our morning program. So they would perform their sadhana, they would meditate for a certain period of time during the day, because they actually had families. Just like Shamika Rishi, he had his son, Shringi, who cursed Parikshit Maharaj. So what happened, the sage was in meditation, but he had, I guess he had a wife, most likely he had a wife, but he also had a child. But what did he do? In that time of day, he was meditating. And it wasn't like he was just trying, he was actually in Turiya. He was beyond the 3 stages of, wakefulness, sleep, and deep sleep. So he was actually absorbed internally, completely in transcendence. So even the yogis in former times, they could enter that state, even though they were just, might say, in the stage of practice. They hadn't gone off to the Himalayas and just meditated constantly for thousands of years. So what to speak of the devotees who are completely absorbed in Krishna consciousness? They enter into that state where they're really not in the material world. Their consciousness is so connected with Krishna. Oh, one of the ladies? Yes, Mataji, you have something? Yeah, it's okay, it's on. Just talk into it.
While going out of Sankirtan now, it's so hard to approach people because they all have some kind of device with them that you cannot interrupt
Right.
because they are talking,
They're always talking to somebody.
Now it's even worse because you don't even see the device. You just see people talking.
Yeah.
So I look at them, I don't know if they're afraid of people, or if they are talking to someone, or if they are in deeply prayer meditation. So it's very hard. On the other hand,
course, that's why we have to take advantage of technology, and that's really where the people are now. Krishna.com, and there's already on the internet, and of course expanding out from there into their smartphones and so on, the apps and so on. We have to get there. That's where we have to go to preach. We used to go to the airports, and now we have to go online. We have to go where the people are. That's where they're assembling. That's the city square now, is that the virtual world. We have to enter into the virtual world in order to spread Krishna consciousness. So devotees are, they're becoming expert in these things and coming up with ways to penetrate that into these malls of today and reach people where they are to give them Krishna consciousness. Mahamaya?
I just want to add to that people are including ourselves, being hyped in so many different ways. We're getting, just bombarded by, this offer or that offer. We don't know what to believe. So when I find that introduced to conscious people, they're just like, kind of considering it along with all the other hypes that they do.
Yeah. That's why there are advantages and disadvantages to everything. That's the age we live in. I've mentioned this before. People grew up in some little village. What did they know? What happened in the village? Maybe there was a village guru. They was pretty much the only person they heard from. They didn't hear other philosophies. Now you can hear every possible thing. You can get any possible thing there is in this world if you have the money. You can get FedEx to deliver it to your door practically, including people. Maybe not FedEx, but somebody will deliver. It's, everything is available. But at the same time, we can also spread Krishna's holy name around the world at the speed of light. How many people we couldn't go to every town and village is getting Krishna consciousness, not because some Harinam party is entering the village, but because someone's turning on their computer and YouTube is there or whatever, some devotees coming on their screen and they're hearing the Mahamantra. So that's what we're trying to do more and more, to figure out. That's what those are the challenges of spreading Lord Chaitanya's movement in the current time. But it's true, it's very difficult because they're so agitated, their minds are so agitated, and everything becomes relative. So, but still, of course, the holy name is the holy name. It will always be the holy name, and it can penetrate through all of that. That sound vibration is more powerful than all of the static. It can actually purify people's consciousness. All right, we'll stop here. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.